Saturday, September 14th, 2019. This is the Pro and Con Show, and I am your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. So, Pro and Con, the whole idea is to try to put these out into the universe, get people to consider the facts, the what, the who, the where, and the when. Try to ignore all the opinion and just form your own opinion and get to the truth, the who, the what, the where, and the when. And so I'm going to go through some of the websites today to look at how they're approaching the news on this Saturday. And the title that I'm informally calling this episode is called Fake News. So let's just jump right into it. So the big news today is that in Saudi Arabia, there's some Yemeni rebels, and they supposedly are Iran-backed, and they used some drones to attack some Saudi oil fields. And so this is says here, according to NPR, which generally is a better source of the who, the what, the where, and the when, and less opinion. The attacks on the oil facilities by the Iran-backed Yemeni rebels sent large plumes of smoke into the air, the trails visible from space, and impacted an estimated production of 5 million barrels a day coming out of Saudi Arabia. So let's look at the other websites here. Again, I call them information sources because rarely do they have the actual news in them. So Huffington Post. So they do have this story, and they say that Pompeo blames Iran for the Saudi oil attack. Okay, and they may or may not be involved because the group, apparently this rebel group, is somewhat supported by them. Let's see here, and then CNN, they also have one of their top stories is attack knocks out half of Saudi oil capacity. Okay, so NPR said it was 5 million barrels a day. CNN says half, so that implies that the Saudi output is around 10 million barrels a day when it's going full force. And just here recently, Fox News also has the story. And then let's go to the last one here, Breitbart. So Breitbart is still focused on the GOP versus Democrats. And so they're doing a lot of stories about Ocasio-Cortez, and now some of her supporters are so aggravated by what's going on that they supposedly are now providing death threats toward some of the Republicans who were also threatening the life of Ocasio-Cortez and others. Yeah, so we got to back away from this stuff. You know, this whole thing, and again, it's the two parties. Get rid of them. But anyway, let's go back and just focus on the fake news for today. So Fox News, just before this headline appeared, which is, you know, a factual story, right, about these attacks on Saudi oil fields, all right? Just before that, their main story, and it was presented as news, by the way, and not opinion, and now it's down here in the opinion section for them. So it says, DeRoy Murdoch, Dem presidential candidates lie when they claim Trump is a racist. So this story here was being presented, this story was being presented not as opinion. Now here, clearly there's in small font here, but it's there. You can see the word opinion, okay? But up until 10-15 minutes ago on Saturday, September 14th, Fox News was presenting this as as fact. And so this fellow, Mr. Murdoch, goes on to say that Mr. Trump is not a racist, and we know this because, and then he cites several examples where Mr. Trump's at a particular place and he makes a statement, or he does something at the White House and he reads off a teleprompter or whatever. And the main thing about this is that, and I'm going to say that Mr. Murdoch is being duped, like many Americans are being duped. So Mr. Trump is, he's the consummate con man. He's been an effective, unbelievably prolific con man for decades. And so what he does is he is really skilled at understanding what the audience wants him to say, and he curries favor from them. He says what he thinks will get favor from them at the moment. And he does this all the time. And so, you know, other politicians meeting with him in the White House, for example, they'll talk about something and he'll tell them exactly what he thinks they want to hear, and we saw this early on in his administration. So some of the Democrats would come out of a meeting with him and say, well, he said this and he said that, so we hope that this is going to be a positive outcome. But then, no, because then he talks to someone else and he flips positions, or he modifies it, or he says he never said what he said before. And I've said this in previous shows, that he is not a racist in the traditional sense. Usually a racist will identify one or more groups of people that differ from themselves and then fairly consistently attack them or deride them or disadvantage them or whatever. Mr. Trump, he only cares about the Trump brand and himself. So if he's talking to somebody and they're, telling him how great he is and whatnot, he doesn't care what the color of their skin is. He thinks they're great. And the moment that they say something that's negative or they question what he's proposing, then they instantly become an evil person. And then what he does is he does what he always does, because he belittles people, or he attempts to belittle people, calling, name calling and all this other stuff. He in many ways acts like an 8-year-old bully on the playground in that regard. And anyway, so Mr. Murdoch is citing several examples here where Mr. Trump, in a formal presentation of some kind, read off a teleprompter that, we have to stop white supremacy and so on. But then, when he's actually ad-libbing in front of one of his crowds, which usually consists of 99% white males and females, then he, hey... he's putting down people and talking about how Mexicans are nothing but murderers and stuff like that, Mexican immigrants, illegal people. And one of the things here with the Bahamas, it was a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, whenever it was, the big hurricane, Category 5, hit the Bahamas. And of course, people are seeking relief and asylum, because basically the island of the Bahamas is destroyed, and there's, I've read maybe as many as 2,500 people feared dead. And you can apparently smell the smell of rotting corpses in the streets everywhere and that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're trying to get relief from that and asking to come to the United States, and he's, no, because he knows that there's a lot of people that support him that would say, no, we don't want to let these people that don't look like us into the country. And so And of course, people that argue with him over that, he belittles them, right? And very happy to do that. So, I did want to say one other thing about this. It's not going to come to me. Oh, yes. So let me just say a few more words about racism before I wrap up the show for today. So racism is real. It's everywhere. It's in everyone. And that is, and I've explained in previous shows that all of us have kind of an internal view, and I don't know how big it is, and some of us it's bigger than others, but we all have this kind of natural mistrust for people that don't look like us and don't speak the same language. For example, there's a natural mistrust, and again, as I've said in the past, I won't go into a lot of detail here, but where does that stem from? Well, we trust people that look like us because we were nurtured. Typically, we're nurtured by our family members, right? Biological families, and what's true about them, they share our DNA, and they look like us, and they sound like us, and we learn from them. We were loved and cared for by them, so we trust people that look like us and sound like us the most, and then we, of course, inherently mistrust people that don't look like us and sound like us. But the reality is our family is only a few people, and the world is rapidly approaching 8 billion. And it's a big world, but it's a global world, and we all, are in it together, and we work because of, modern communication, modern transportation. We're all together on this planet. So we have to always internally, each and every one of us, me included, you included, everyone, we have to sit there and say, I'm talking to someone. Is there in any way, shape, or form, because they're a woman, because they're gay, because they're African American, because they're Native American, because they're Indian, because they're French, whatever, am I treating them differently than I would treat myself at this moment? And you have to constantly ask yourself that. And if the answer is yes, you have to say, look, I internally, I can't do that. I have to consciously think about how would I treat this person if it were me at this moment. Okay. All right. So again, the main point behind the show is the fake news in this particular case on Fox News, where they're presenting an opinion piece as a headline, and it's as news. And it's a fellow's opinion. Do it all the time. They do it all the time. Not good. Bad journalism. All right, so for the Pro and Con Show for Saturday, September 14th, 2019, this is Michael James Ott. I hope each and every one of you has an outstanding day and great health. And until next show, bye for now.